fresh outlook, everyone, on this first week of June. I'm Mia Toschi. If you're in the U.S. or abroad, we thank you for your company. Now, we're going to start things off this week with a case that is deeply dividing Americans. Did the Obama administration do the right thing by swapping 5 Taliban leaders to win the freedom of Afghanistan prisoner of war Bowe Bergdhal? Here's a closer look at that story. Then we'll talk things out.
Republican members in Congress are vocal about their displeasure on the release of prisoners in exchange for Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdhal.
The president has now set a precedent that will encourage enemies of the United States to target American men and women in uniform, to capture them.
And they will re-enter the fight. And that's been the history of 30% of those who have already been released from detention in Guantanamo.
Not only is the prisoner swap the problem, it is the way the operation was carried out.
In my opinion, there's no question that the president violated the law by not notifying Congress.
The Obama administration is sticking to its guns with this one.
Once we had in place the agreement with through the Qataris about how this could proceed, there were real concerns that if this were made public first, his physical security could be in danger more. So as we needed to move quickly, all of these factors played into that.
The Pentagon says Bergdhal is in a stable condition at the U.S. Army's medical center in Germany. Officials have indicated there is little desire to pursue any disciplinary action against him.
Joining us now is my co-host and former White House aide Dee Dee Benkie, Dr. Bart Rosenberg from Drexel University, and Garrett DiMarco, a U.S. Army bomb specialist, and via Skype is Dr. Bart Rossi. We thank you all for joining us. Well, we want to take the temperature here with the panel right now, and we want to just ask everybody, war hero or a traitor here? Dee Dee, we're going to start with you.
Do you just want the word first and then go back around?
Yes, we'll do it that way.
Big traitor, terrible.
Okay, Garrett?
Clearly a traitor and a deserter.
Okay, Dr. Rosenberg.
It sounds like America here, but I'm going to say neither. I don't think he's it's not been determined as either one yet.
And checking in with Dr. Bart Rossi, what do you think, Dr. Bart?
I think he's a guy that had a lot of mental health problems before, during, and currently. So I don't think he's a traitor. He may have had a psychological problem. He may have had a psychiatric break. That's what I think.
Well, he had one for 5 years, but we'll get back to you with that, Dr. Bart. Let's talk about Obama. Is this an impeachable moment for him? Dee Dee, we're going to start with you.
Absolutely it is. You know, look, Obama's had a lot of problems, but this is the worst of all. I mean, here he doesn't even get Congressman's permission. And the most important thing that Obama's supposed to do, most important task, is to be commander-in-chief, to protect America. And look what he did. He trained a deserter, a traitor for 5 Taliban officials. And these weren't just regular Taliban guys at Guantanamo. These were generals, like 5-star generals and you know, in our world. And you know, the men in the platoon with Bergdhal said he was a deserter. People died trying to save him. They all believe he absolutely is a traitor and deserter, and it's really terrible. And Obama should be impeached.
Garrett, now my father served in the military, and you know, he said if it was during his time, he would have been shot for deserting. What are your thoughts? I mean, last week we had you on, we were talking about things. Are you angry about this case?
Absolutely. I mean, he walked off the post. First of all, in your opening segment, he wasn't a prisoner of war. He was a deserter and a traitor. A prisoner of war, if he got captured in battle, if his base got raided and they took him, maybe. He walked off voluntarily. He left his weapon, his body armor, everything behind, and walked into the village.
And his brother-in-arms died searching for him.
Well, we'll get to the 6 people who got killed, absolutely.
6 soldiers got killed trying to save him. Not to mention, it pulled resources away from every other mission they were doing out there. I mean, his disappearance, what he did, it completely disrupted operations in the area. It got people killed, and now he's back home, and the Obama administration wants to praise him as some sort of a hero who, in the words of Suzanne Rice, said he served with honor and distinction. Well, it certainly was distinct, but not in a good way.
And I will talk about whether there was any honor there as well. Now, Dr. Rosenberg, you got a tough argument with these two right here. What are your thoughts? Is this an impeachable moment for?
I think first of all, you can hear the tone and the voice of 2 other guests. It's a very emotional issue. But I think that emotion is something that's important, but we also have to practice rationality as well. First of all, the argument about Commander-in-Chief, he is the Commander-in-Chief. And he is authorized to do whatever he feels is necessary as Commander-in-Chief to fulfill his duties.
With Congress permission.
Wait, excuse me for 1 second, okay? The bottom line is that presidents often engage in missions, even though there's an understanding with a law that's in place, that sometimes the president's going to go around that law, and it's been done by Democrats and Republicans. It's not a new thing. Okay, the second thing is that in terms of him being a traitor, he did not go over and join the other side. He, as your Dr. Bart,
we don't know that yet.
Well, there's been no evidence that that's the case. And my short and sweet answer is, I think it was very important for the Obama administration to bring him back. I think the bottom line is that prisoner exchanges happen all the time. This war is winding down. We were going to have to release these people anyway, unless we were going to convict them of a crime, which hasn't happened at Guantanamo Bay for over 10 years. And the bottom line is, ultimately, I think he should come back and he should face whatever judicial tribunal he is supposed to face.
Well, let me ask you another question. Whether or not this war is winding down or not, don't you think that this may be setting a dangerous precedent?
No, I think
five generals versus a soldier.
I'll give you the example that I think is relevant here. If you take a look at the country of Israel, Israel claims that they do not negotiate with terrorists, okay? There was a soldier by the name of Shalat, okay, who was taken prisoner, actually taken prisoner, not someone who wandered off base, and they traded 800 people for one Israeli soldier. So the bottom line is that prisoner
exchange... Doesn't make it right.
What I'm trying to say, if you're going to let me speak, or are we going to argue? I mean, the bottom line is that people in government make decisions. You don't have to agree with them. And I think that the Obama administration, I think, probably miscalculated the response, but I don't necessarily think that they made a mistake.
And I wasn't arguing. I said it doesn't make it right. That's not an argument.
Okay.
We were arguing.
Yes, you were arguing with them, not with me.
I feel like I'm getting argued.
Well, I think that it's fair to say, if we take the Reuters poll, there's a couple different numbers out there right now. 44 to 50% disagreed with the statement that trading Taliban prisoners for Bergdhal was the right thing to do. And I want to check in with Dr. Bart Rossi also, because Dr. Bart, do you think this is setting a dangerous precedent?
No, I don't, because we have to learn to compromise, number one, and all presidents compromise.
The Obama administration didn't do anything, and we had a repeat of what happened in Iraq with American soldiers being beheaded. The reaction would be very different. Okay, so the issue would be the administration had to make a decision. This is not a decision that was made in a moment's notice. In fact, the leaders of the Senate and House were notified of a deal like this 2.5 years ago. So the bottom line is that it happened recently without re-notification, but it's a troubling situation. There's no doubt about it.
And I do think that our panel of guests, we obviously have two. We've got Dee Dee and Garrett, who are absolutely opposed to this prisoner swap, and we have, of course, you, Dr. Rosenberg, and Dr. Bart, who are in favor. So it sort of is taking the temperature of the American public as well. But it seems that the pendulum is swinging a little bit more in the Republican favor as we watch those numbers. Do you think that this swap puts Americans in danger, Dee Dee?
Yes, that's my biggest problem with it, because as Commander-in-Chief, and we know that these Taliban, one of them have already said, we're going to go after Americans. We're going to hurt Americans. They hate us. They want us dead. They have killed Americans. And they are war criminals. They're not prisoners of war. They're war criminals, proven to be. So you know what? The president has taken, make Americans be in danger, and he's weakened our country. And I think the more that we hear about it, the more the pendulum will swing. And this is not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. It's an American issue. This president has weakened our country, and also, in Haley, Idaho, his hometown, they had to call off the celebration. Guess why? Because there were so many opponents and so many people angry. If he doesn't have support in his hometown, that's pretty bad.
I can't imagine what Senator McCain is thinking right now.
It's not good.
Absolutely.
But to say, just to jump in there, just say, like, if they wanted to kill him, you know, they would have done it. They had him for 5 years. If they wanted to kill him, they would have done it already. Also, if everyone could have Captivity as good as him, I mean, he was out there, he was going to the local markets, they were letting him play soccer, they were letting him do target practice.
Well, you know, Garrett, you know a little bit.
Carry a loaded weapon around.
You know a little bit about this case. Just
Absolutely.
fill us in a little bit about, like, 5 years ago, he just decided to
Well, I mean, I didn't know him personally, but a lot of his squad mates were saying how he always seemed disillusioned. He always talked about walking off. He often said, you could just go walk off in these mountains and get lost. And
but wouldn't that be a reason why perhaps the military made a miscalculation in keeping him in service if he's wandered off, which the reports, which I have no way to confirm or not, seem to indicate that he walked off 2 times prior to this, then that's probably not soldier material. So he probably should have been removed or tried in some way at that point.
And I mean,
no, my point is that once he went AWOL, if that's the proper term, okay, he probably should have been subject to disciplinary processes or removed from the military service with dishonorable discharge.
That's
the military didn't do that, okay? So in some ways, the military sort of failed in sort of resolving the problem.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. I'm sorry, but you can't blame the military or the platoon guys. I mean, the people who died for what he did.
That's not
the military in general.
That's not what I said. You're putting words in my mouth. What I'm saying is that there has to be a judgment about whether or not he should be able to serve. And if he's not doing his duty properly, he should have been removed then.
Well, Garrett, let's address that. Why do you think the military didn't?
I mean, within any unit, there are lots of people, lots of issues to take care of. I mean, the fact that why wasn't there someone watching him 24/7? I mean, he's a grown man. He's an adult. He's a soldier. He should be able to take care of himself. If there's an issue, maybe his leadership should have seen it, maybe not. Talking about, I want to walk off and getting lost and having
that. But he did that twice.
Yes, and
it wasn't talk.
He's not the victim. You're trying to make him a victim.
No, what I'm saying is, I think, as Dr. Bart was commenting, but we weren't able to hear him, I think the fellow probably has mental issues going on. And I think the reality is, and my argument is not to recognize him as a hero. I've never said that. What I said is he should have been brought back and he should have faced justice here. And that wouldn't make it include a determination of what he was doing.
But to completely deflect blame from him, to say that,
it's not his fault.
I'm saying, give the 5 Taliban members, no way.
He willingly walked off the base.
Let's check in with Dr. Bart. Dr. Bart, okay, now you've been hearing us talk, and we apologize for that connection earlier. We're talking about whether he had some sort of a mental break, as you said, but maybe he's just a coward as well. I mean, how do you know which one he is?
Well, I think it's a good point that he could be, but we don't know. That's the point. And I think there's 2 separate issues here. Getting a soldier back and doing everything we can to get a soldier back, as McCain said months ago, by the way. And the second issue is when he comes back, we have to take a look. Did he really desert? Did he have a psychotic break? Does he have personality problems that made him do something rash and irresponsible? It's probably the latter, but we don't know. So to call him a traitor at this point in time when we don't know, I think is just an attempt to go down the extreme path and try to damage the president. And if the president didn't do this, and again, there was a problem, they killed him or something else happened, they'd blame the president for being weak. So there's a lot of psychology in play as well as politics here.
Well, Dr. Bart, I want to go around with you one more time just to say, what do you think is going to happen this week? What are your predictions? And then we want to just go and remember our veterans on D-Day as well. Dee Dee, very quickly.
I think our president could very well face impeachment over this. I think it's that serious.
Garrett?
Obama weakened our position in the world and endangered more American lives and our soldiers overseas right now.
And Dr. Rosenberg?
I think that this is the major partisan divide, and I think it's also a divide over the whole war in general. I think Americans are not happy with getting into the war, our actions there, and are feeling uncomfortable about getting out, and this is just symptomatic of that divide that occurs in the country.
And we also want to remember all of our veterans. Of course, this week was also the anniversary of D-Day. Not sure if you saw some of those amazing men who actually jumped out of airplanes, some of them 89 years old. We certainly thank them all for their service this week as we remember D-Day, and certainly Garrett, we thank you for your service whenever you're on Fresh Outlook. Thanks for being on here. Dr. Rosenberg, we thank you for being on. Dr. Bart, we'll get back to you in a little bit, and don't you go away. When we come back, we're going to travel to Seattle. Now, the coastal seaport city in the state of Washington had a wild ride this week. There was yet another deadly shooting at a college campus this week. On another note, the city is also making a bold statement with a rise in the minimum wage. We'll be right back with a look at both topics when we return.